All the rain we've had lately may have kept us out of the garden, but the vegetables have really benefited from the cool, rainy weather, especially our spring vegetable crops. We just have a rainbow of colors here in our salad garden. We've got some Bloomsdale spinach back here. We've harvested some radishes. This little red one is called Sparkler, and this is white icicle. Now, if you haven't been in your garden in a while, you may notice that some have gotten to this stage, and those would probably be best composted. They're not going to taste very good for you. Now, with the lettuce, all the varieties we've planted have done just beautifully. These two leafy types are Salad Bowl, and then we have black-seeded Simpson over here. Back here, we have a variety called Ruby, and I think that has colored up just beautifully, and you can see how you can have a nice contrast in the garden. It'd certainly make a nice edible landscape too. Over here we have 4 varieties. This is a bib type down here called Anue Nue, and it's a variety developed in Hawaii that's heat tolerant, and we've been thinning that. We'll thin it down some more and go ahead and let it make a little soft head or loose head. This right here is a new variety from Johnny Seeds up in Maine, and it's Rosalita, and it is a red romaine lettuce. Very nutritious, very, very colorful. Then right here is one called Sangria, and it's a red and green two-tone. And then last of all is another two-tone called Lola Rosa, very curly, loose head lettuce, very, very attractive. So as fall approaches later this summer, think about planting a salad garden. It's a little late to reseed lettuce unless you're going to give it some shade through the summer. But what a great blend of colors it makes in the springtime. Well, our cold crops have done fantastic in this cool, rainy weather. Our cabbages have gotten huge. They're starting to make a head. They have big, healthy foliage, and I think we'll have a nice harvest off of those in a few weeks. Right now, we're picking broccoli and cauliflower. Remember with your broccoli to allow it to send out more side shoots, give it a little extra feeding, and you can continue your harvest for a few more weeks. Our red cabbage has done extremely well in the spring because it has remained fairly cool, although generally red cabbage does a little better in the fall for us. Over in the peas, they're starting to bloom now as they climb up the trellis. We'll be harvesting those in a couple of weeks, and our tomatoes next to those have had the walls of water around them all spring. We've taken those off, put cages around them, and they are nice stocky plants that are blooming now. We should be harvesting tomatoes in another 6 weeks or so. Our corn has not fared quite so well. Because it has been cool and rainy and cool soils, we've not gotten the good germination that we would like to see, although we had to get them in early when we knew that rainy weather was coming. If you are going to make a late planting of corn now, make sure that you select a variety that will come to maturity very, very early, such as early extra sweet or early Sunglow or Aztec, because once the high temperatures hit later this summer in about 8 weeks, the pollination will be thrown off by high temperatures, and you may not get a good harvest of corn. Now, if you have a stand of corn in your garden, it's probably looking kind of pale like ours. All that rain leached away a lot of the nitrogen, so they really need a side dressing right now of either urea, ammonium nitrate. If you're an organic gardener, you could use manure or a manure tea and try to green them up as best you can and get them up and growing now that the warm weather is here. Well, our potatoes are flowering now. That tells us that down below we have some small tubers forming. And in a few weeks we'll be harvesting some new potatoes. Our green beans are growing well, and last of all, our onions are ready to be thinned again and side dressed, and they've done extremely well for us here in our garden this spring. Here's a type of onion that no garden in Oklahoma should be without. These are multiplier onions. Some people call them winter onions. This variety I have here is called Trail of Tears. In fact, its ancestors were brought over on the Cherokee Trail of Tears. These were given to us by an historian who lives in Tulsa and specializes in the late 19th century. His name's Stephen McCartney, and he gave us a start of these by giving us just a few of these sprouts that have come from the top of the onion. And this is how you can share these with your neighbors or get some from a neighbor. And this is how the onions multiply. Not only do they clump out of the bottom and multiply from the base, but also in the spring and early summer, they'll send out offshoots or volvels, and these will sprout and root down into the soil. And if I were to leave these in direct contact with the soil, they would root down and I'd have more plants, but probably we'll share those with some friends here in the horticulture department. But that's one thing that you really ought to have in your herb bed. Once you get them, you'll have them forever, and you can go out in the fall and winter and harvest some mild flavored onions and enjoy them that way as a perennial in your herb bed. Well, some annual herbs that we've planted, we have 3 varieties of basil here. This one in front is called Genovese, and it's an Italian basil, very, very good flavor. This is a small lemon basil, and back here is an anise-scented basil. And in a lot of Italian cooking, especially with flavoring sausages and such and pizzas, anise is used. It has a very mild licorice flavor, so that's anise-scented basil. Over here, our sage is doing all too well. But the color is so attractive that we're leaving it in the garden until it goes by. But before they go completely to seed, we'll trim them back. In front, our chives are in full bloom. And a lot of herb gardeners like to put those in a vinegar this time of year. Just pull off a couple of heads and drop those into vinegar in a glass jar in the refrigerator. Leave them for a couple of days, and it will tint it a very light pink. And you could use those in an oil and vinegar salad dressing, and it'll have a very mild chive flavor. Down here, our garlic chives are doing very well. They'll bloom with white flowers later this summer. And here we have some oregano, another mainstay of Italian cooking, and then in the back some creeping thyme that needs thinning out and moving to other parts of our garden. Well, I hope you're enjoying your herbs this season. Add a few, and don't forget to thin out the ones that you have so you'll still have plenty of room in your herb bed.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.